So just to recap what we have done so far, to assume that we now understand various technologies or methods that are used for gathering information about the target machine you want to launch an attack on as an ethical hacker. So we are entering section 8. Remember, it means that we have successfully completed 7 sections. The first section introduced us to ethical hacking. The second section focused on, I think, networking fundamentals, right? The third section exposes us to scripting languages like basic Bash, basic Python, and basic Linux. And then we spent about 2 sessions on reconnaissance, right? Where we talk about both the active and the passive. And I told us that why reconnaissance is important in the field of ethical hacking is for you to know how you can, spy or have some information about the domain or the system you want to hack. And then I said, where you have knowledge of the domain you want to hack, it is called active what? Reconnaissance. Where you don't have any prior knowledge on the system you want to hack is called what? Passive reconnaissance. Now, if you look at the various techniques that we have learned so far under passive, we look at so many of them, right? Even at some point, we have to learn some browsers using Google Browser, Google Hacker, and the rest of them. Then the major takeaway under active reconnaissance is the what? The Nmap, right? That is the main one. Now that we now know how to exploit those options, we are looking at launching what? Attack. Because the whole of those topics is to prepare us for what? Launching attack. Because there's no way you will launch an attack on a system you don't have either passive and active what? Information about. So just to give an overview of what we plan to cover in this section 8 overview. So in this section, we will be going over how to launch, attack, and compromise your targets when hacking. Now, don't forget that we are not training individuals to become black hat hacker. Instead, to be useful for organization to be hired to defend their systems. So in this section, we will be going over how to launch, attack, and compromise targets when hacking. Specifically, we will be going over phases of an attack. So we are going to know what are phases of an attack. As an ethical hacker, it is very paramount you understand that. You need to understand the layers, different segments an attack can occur. So we are going to be looking at that. We will also look at analyzing the gathered information. In other words, you can see why we are being on reconnaissances is at what? Number 2. Those informations that we must have derived through the reconnaissance, we are going to be analyzing them. It's not everything that you need. You're going to be looking at what exactly you need from all those information that we were gathering. They will also look at searching for and understanding what? Exploits. We are going to look at machines that we can what? Exploit. We are going to search for them. We are going to understand them. We are also going to what? To launch what? Exploit. That's what? Launching exploits. Then also creating custom malware. Remember that I told us that in the field of cybersecurity, there are different threats, right? There are different threats. We have malware what? Threats, where we say that this is where a software is set for malicious what? Purpose. So we are going to create some and see how we can use them. Remember that this program is designed to mimic the ways of what? The bad guys, so that we can be used to fight them. Now, we are also going to be looking at avoiding antivirus what? Detection. So those bad guys, there's a way they can twist a system that have an active what? Antivirus deliberately, so that the antivirus will not detect them and be able to what? Take advantage of the system. Because when we were learning Security Plus, right, we did mention that you need to know how to make the system difficult. And one of the recommendations was what? Installing what? Very strong antivirus. We are saying that these boys have upgraded in a way that they can even stop the antivirus what? Detection. So they can still penetrate into a system that have a very strong antivirus installed and be able to what? To stop it from detecting their what? Activities. So we're also going to be looking at what? Brute force. Remember, we mentioned this brute force in one of the method under what? Reconnaissance. Then ARP spoofing. Remember that I mentioned this spoofing, right? Good. Now, look at what? Social engineering. So just a disclaimer before we proceed properly. So a disclaimer. So anything that you learn from this section, because this section is very dangerous. Anything that you learn from this section is purely for what? Educational what? Purposes. And it is meant to be used for ethical hacking, not unethical hacking, not for bad ways. We do not advocate or approve of any utilizing these techniques to perform malicious actions against any what? Device or network, unless given what? Permission to do so prior. Now, remember I said our first objective is what? To look at what? Phases of an attack. Phases of an attack. So that is the first area I want us to look at. Yes, of course, the letter I've started. Phases of an attack. Phases of an attack. So there are 5 phases that makes up what? An attack. So why do you need to be aware of this as an ethical hacker? So these bad guys that breaks into system understand these phases. So since you are being trained to mimic their way so that organization can use you to prevent their access, you also need to know these different layers they use. So the first one is what? Reconnaissance. So you can see why I was saying that those that felt that don't know what we are doing, where we are spending the whole of that time on this. So it's catching up with them here. So if you have not gone through those reconnaissance methods, you'll be forced to go back. Scanning, gaining access, maintaining access, they're covering what? Attack. So these are the 5 phases that makes up an attack. So for you to be able to attack any system, you are going to engage in gathering what? Information about what? That domain or system, either passively or what? Actively. That falls under what? Reconnaissance. For you to also launch an attack on the system, you're going to scan. You're going to scan for IP address, right? Scan for different information. You are going to gain access. If you don't gain access, you cannot what? Exploit it. We are going to maintain the access. What does that mean? You're going to what? Be stable. You know, look at it here. I can gain access to this room now, right? Yeah. But I may not maintain it. I can access it once, but the next second, the person that is managing the domain will have detected me and what? Probably push me out. So we are going to also learn how to Maintain those assets you must have gained. Then covering what? Tracks. Have we written everything? Okay, so let's start with the phase one. The phase one is what? Reconnaissance. So at some point, I'm just recapping because I understand that some of us must have forgotten some of these things, right? So I'm just like briefly giving us some intro regarding to each of these phases. So in case you miss those reconnaissance section, then from here you can have an understanding of what reconnaissance is. So reconnaissance, which is phase one, this is what, just like I've outlined in my slide, prepare phase, where an attacker gathers what? Information. So it's a preparation phase where an attacker gathers information about the target prior to what? Launching the attack. So this is an engagement by the attacker to find out certain thing about what? The system. Like finding out what? If it is a website, the person will find out what? The server, right? We find out the DNS and all of that information about it before launching what? An attack. So it's actually gathering information. Reconnaissance types. We have passive. For those that attended that session, you understand what that is all about. Passive, attacker does not interact with what? The system directly. Active, attacker interacts with the system by using tools to detect open ports. Remember, we talked about what? The role of what? Ports. Once a port is closed, you will not be able to what? To get any information from that. So attacker does not interact with the system directly. Then active, attacker interacts with the system by using tools to detect open ports, accessible hosts, routers, locations, network mapping, details of operating system and application. All right. Now let's look at phase two. Phase two is what? Scanning. So a summary of what scanning entails. Attacker uses the detail gathered. That is after phase one, right? Which is reconnaissance. They must have gathered what? Some information. Attacker uses the detail gathered during reconnaissance to identify specific vulnerabilities. So vulnerability in this context means loopholes, machine or system that are open, that are not properly well protected. An attacker can gather critical network information, such as the mapping of systems, routers, and firewalls. Still under scanning, port scanners can be used to detect listening ports to find information about nature of what? Services running on that target machine. Vulnerability scanners, most commonly used tools. So there are tools out there that can really be used to perform all these operations that I've outlined here. So we are still talking about phases of what? Attack. All right, so that is all about what? Phase two. Now let's quickly look at phase three. Phase three is what? Gaining access, like we have outlined before. So what does the hackers engage in under this phase? Where most of the damage is usually what? Done. So this is where most of the damage is usually done.
access can be gained locally, offline, over what? A local area network or over the internet. A hacker chances of gaining access into a target system are what? Influenced by the following factors. So these are the factors that will determine whether the person can easily what? Gain access. One is architecture and the configuration of the target system. It's very important. If the target system is configured to be secure, if so many things are, for example, now we just mentioned ports the other time, right? Nobody can gain access to a system without going through what? A port. Because we have established before now that information moves on the internet through what? Ports. So if a port is closed, if after your scanning, which is phase 2, right, you discover that what the machine you are targeting, ports are closed. If, for example, now the FTP port, which is port 21 for email, and you are targeting to hack what someone what mail, and that port is closed, can you gain access? No. So the architecture and the configuration of the target system matter as a factor that will influence the gaining access. Skill level of the what? The hacker, the amount of skill the person has will determine. Ability to interpret the what? The reconnaissance what? Information will determine. Because the reconnaissance will give you so many information. How do you know which one you can use? Initial level of access what? Obtained also matter. Initial level of access obtained matters. So these are all right. Let's quickly look at the next phase, which is the fourth phase. Maintaining what? Access. Maintaining access. So what are the activities that are involved here? Attackers who choose to remain what? Undetected. Remove any evidence of their intrusion. Install a backdoor or a Trojan to gain repeat what? Access. Like I was saying the other time, they want to keep what? Access. So they will install a Trojan. So that is why that Trojan is like what we know as what? The malware. Like a virus. So once it's here, just like what we keep them what? Maintaining the access. Install rootkits to gain full administrator access to the target what? Computer. So all these things, once they gain access that first time, they will download and install all these things to maintain the access. So even when they step out that day, that system, they have already what? Taken over that system. So hacker can use Trojan horses to transfer users what? Name, password, and any other information stored on the what? The system. Organization can use intrusion detection. So this is a kind of recommendation. What organization can use to what? To detect that kind of activity. System or deploy traps known as what? Honeypots and honeynets to detect what? Intruders. All these they are software technologies that big organization through security experts like you, once your service is probably obtained, then you'll be the one to install all this just for the purpose of what? Depriving the bad guys from installing all these Trojan horses and rootkits, which they are used to transfer information from that system. All right. Yeah. Now let's look at the fifth phase, which is what? Covering what? Traps. A good hacker will usually erase what? All evidence of their action. Trojans such as PS or netcats, are often used to erase the attacker's activities from the system log files. We have steganography, process of hiding data in other data. For instance, image and sound file. We have tunneling, takes advantage of transmission protocol by carrying one protocol over another. So all this is how they cover their tracks. Remember that before they even launch the attack, they will have remained what? Anonymous. Now, after the attack, they launch this aspect to make sure that nothing is used to what? To trace them. Okay, now that brought us to the end of what? The 5 attacking what? Phases. No, these are some of the things we have already summarized. There are some that you can just snap, you understand, so that you can move forward. Because most of this is just like I'm trying to like refresh us before we get into, because it has been a while we left all these domains. So social engineering in our cybersecurity plus section, we talk about social engineering now, right? Social engineering is the art of what? Manipulating users into what? Revealing confidential what? Information. So these bad guys, that's what they do. They can, intentionally create a free training. And then the only way you access it is that you fill an email. And meanwhile, they just want to use that email to get, that is part of their reconnaissance what? Method. Part of way of collecting some of your important information that they could use in attacking. Information that can be used to gain unauthorized what? Access to information. Common social engineering attacks are what? Phishing. We've discussed it before now, right? A watering hole, the pre-testing. So you can just go on and read through them. So just for you to know that it's part of what is required, what these bad boys use in order to get information. So let's talk about analyzing, gathering what? Or gather what? Information, which is part of the objective. You should write this one. I don't think it's much. Because after this now, we are going to Kali now to start gathering this information. Start deploying some of our what? The active reconnaissance what? Method. So analyzing, gathering information, the first step to launching an attack is to gather and analyze all of the information that was gathered during what? Reconnaissance. So this includes looking at the result of your Nmap and other scans to compile list of 1. IP what? Address. Don't forget, we have established before now that IP address, I think that was under network fundamentals, right? Where we discuss how computers talk towards each other on what? Network. With the help of, I mentioned two ID that computer can use to actually talk to themselves. But one is paramount, which is what? The IP address. We'll talk about what? MAC what? Address the other time. Good. Then open ports, operating system and what? Host names. So these are information you must have gathered through your what? Reconnaissance deployments. Discover network shares, discover users' accounts, potential vulnerabilities that were discovered. So all this that we discover through reconnaissance are important to launching an attack. Are we together? Now, at this point, I have already, these are practical. I don't want us to be wasting time. So check for open port. Remember I said it's part of what you need. You want to launch an attack, right? This is under what? Out of those 5 phases, this one, the first code, which one does it fall into? To check for open ports by scanning all the words. How many total ports do we say we have? 65,500 what? That is total number of ports we have in the whole world. All the ports that information can, be transmitted through on the internet, all of them amount to what? To that number. That is why when we are under network fundamental, I said there are so many, but you just have to know the ones that are useful. Thank God for AI. If you already know the domain you want to hack, okay, and you know the port, you can easily search, right? Which port is what? Responsible for it. Now, let me explain this code now before we go to Kali to start launching this. I want to break it down. To check, I said run what? Sudo. Remember, we've learned this now. Sudo what? Nmap. Nmap was which of the reconnaissance method? Nmap. Was it under active or passive? Active. Active. Good. That means what? You are using active. And under active, that is where you have already know the what? The IP address. So Nmap, so that P there now represents what? The ports. Okay. Now the 192.168.1 is what? The target machine what? Address, which is what? Metasploitable. So if you have not derived that, go and get that. Get your metasploitable what? IP address, because you are launching this, you are running this code in Kali. You are targeting what? Metasploitable. So just open the metasploitable, run if what? Config. You get what? The IP address. So let's get that ready, because I'm going to switch now and also do the same. All right, so now let me, I believe we have you written all this? Have you snapped this? So once you confirm it, you write it in your notes, just to refresh your memory. So let me exit from here. Don't worry, I'm coming back to it. We want to snap. Oh yeah, quickly. You will put your IP address together. Now we are going to run the first line of code. in order for us to check for what? Open ports. By scanning all. So we're going to scan all. So when you write this code like this, you are not saying scan from port 1 to what? 100. You are scanning what? All. So now, which machine will I be using? So let me switch back to my player, which is the virtual box. Log in with your password. So this is my Kali, right? Then I know I have opened my Metasploitable somewhere. If you have not opened it, then you need to open it. So let me reopen it so that I can obtain the IP address. Mind you, the IP address can change if you are using Wi-Fi and you are using what? Hotspots. If you are using Wi-Fi to connect to your laptop, your IP address will change from what? When you are using, when another person is hotspotting you. So that you don't copy one and assume that the one you copied yesterday is the IP address. So let's take note of that. The IP address changes according to the network that is funding that system. That is why you notice that what sometimes you see some IP address having that format of 192, while some having what 10 points. Good, that is the network. So I want to be sure. So I go back to my player and then start my Metasploitable, which is one of the target machine. So I have two target machine. Please, I don't want site up. So I have two target machines. One is Metasploitable. The other one is OWASP, Broken Web Application. Okay, so any one of them you want to scan the vulnerable ports or ports that are open. So you have to go and obtain its IP address. Now, you don't expect the target machine to have user interface like Kali. Kali is an operating system. That's why you have all those icons, all those folder, user interface management. But you shouldn't expect it here because the persons you want to hack their machine, you will not have access to see their desktop the way you are seeing it. You understand? Is at the background that what the hacking is taking place. So I'm waiting for my target machine, which is Metasploitable, to open, and then I will log in with the default password, which is MSF admin, right? As usual. Then the same thing, MSF admin as my password. Then I will just do ifconfig just to obtain my ETHO, which is the IP address. So the IP address is 168.56. So you can see that it has changed. I'm connecting with Wi-Fi. If I use hotspot now, this is not the IP address I'm going to get. So that's why you not copy this one down now, and then the subsequent code you'll be running, you now assume that without launching it, you'll be getting error. So now somebody should help me to write it down. So when I get there, you help me to call it 192.168.56.10.2. You know, the subnet will always be the same. The subnet is always 255, right? Across all machines. Now, let us go to our Kali now and run this code. What is the code again? Sudo, remember, right? Sudo Sudo nmap. The first line of code is one I am running now from the slide. Then space, -p, then space, that IP address, 192.168.56.102, right? So once I run it, so let's wait. It takes time. It takes time because you say you are scanning all the ports. all the ports. Look at this here. ECHO, not what? LO. So the summary here, this is it here. This one is your local network. This is the remote network. This one is telling you what? Local network. This is what? Remote network. Yes. It's a remote now, of course. The person you are hacking is on remote. It is a real. You will get a you will deploy another tool to break the password first before you lost this. Have you all now? This is the result. This is the result I got. Look at it here. This is the result I get. Now you can see that what all this port 21 is open, right? Port 22 is what? Open. So you can now see the ones that are open. Then port 8 something, they are not what? Unknown. It couldn't factor them out. So now this is you trying to scan the port that are open so that I will know whether I'm to launch attack here. So what you just did now falls under what? Reconnaissance. So there is another code again. I said notes from the notes you wrote. Notes, you will observe that port what? 21, 22, and so on are what? Open, which can be what? Exploit. To scan specific port. Now, this is another code. This is the second line of code, and because there are 3 codes we have to run from that slide, right? Hello. Yeah. Now, to scan specific port, let's assume that you are not interested in scanning all the 65,535 words ports. You already know the port you want to deal with. So how do you specifically scan that port? So the code you are going to write is NP. Sorry, you just say what? NP. Sorry, nmap. Just write nmap space -p, then space, mention the number of what? Ports. Use comma to separate them. That is, I want to check whether port 22 is what? Is vulnerable or is open. Then I'm checking 2 ports. Then you space, specify the IP address of the target system, which is the same thing, 192.168.56.102. So no, it's just command I separating them. Then once you run it, let's see how it goes. Now you can see it now. So it listed out only those 2 ports, right? And tell you whether they are open or what? Not. So we have executed the second code in our slide. So the one we want to execute now is for aggressive scan with operating system detection version. Version detection, scripts scanning, and tracer out. You use this very one. That A represents what? Aggressive. That is where you want to scan this highlighted information. You use this. So let's see what we are going to get. Sudo nmap space the IP address 192.168.56 102. My own is still running. Keep running. So let's make sure we are executing them. So I will see. I can compare the results. That's outputted. So yeah, this is how it has to come out. Both scripts, because we mentioned what we want to get that the other one could not provide. That is why we are using that aggressive. That is for us to be able to get beyond the information we got through the other one. It depends on, you are scanning now. It depends on network and the domain now. So just try it again. What did you have there?
After that, starting and mark from the same one was the mass DNS running up to the 9 and
so you can see it says we're connected to this. These are different SSL. Like this, have you? So that is for running aggressive scanning. All telnets, because we are going to involve it now. So telnet is a short for telecommunication network. It's a network protocol used to remotely access and manage devices over a network using a command line interface, CLI.
Yes,
so let's look at taking advantage of telnet, which we just explained now. Taking advantage of telnet. Okay. Just to explain, the telnet is a remote what management service that runs over what ports. So if you remember from the network section where we were talking about this network port, we said that telnet was replaced by what? This SSH, due to the telnet not encrypting communication. So this has, based on some lapses, some flaws, the technology has advanced or replaced with that. As a result, if telnet is used by a device, we can sniff the traffic in plain text and recover users' name, password, and sensitive data. We can achieve this using Wireshark or protocol what? Analyzer. So that SS which has been replaced by the telnet stands for what? Secure share. It is a cryptographic network protocol used to securely access and manage devices remotely over an unsecure network. Now, because we are about launching another method now, which is the Wireshark. So what we are saying is that we are deploying the telnets, but on the platform of Wireshark. So it is also a technology. So now let's go back to Kali and see how we can, use this Wireshark to get information on network. We have to run sudo Wireshark. So what we are going to get is that this will display capture from ETHO, which is that virtual bus domain. So let's quickly write this one, or we snap, go and execute.
I will reach the door. I thought something.
Okay, so let me execute that sudo wire sharp. Wire sharp. All right, so is this what you get? So if you look at, let's focus, please. So now, as you can see here, like I said, this will display capture each virtual word post. Now double click to choose listener. This will start the capturing. Now that is talking about explaining that result that came out. Let me go back. How did your own display? Is this exactly how? Let me see. You double click on the ETH you have it. Well, how do you make that? How is got it? You don't show the progress. No, he has gotten the information that we want to. That fix. He just wanted my own soup. Let me go back and run it again. Sudo wire sharp. Yeah, that ETA, so you double click on it to scan and present information. Let me start my machine. So that's not the machine. It's because of that's in essence. Something is wrong. Supposed to have loaded like your own. You also have not. Okay, I think it's working now. Let me wait to get my permission. Remember that how do you define the telnet, which is the concept we are deploying through the wire shark? How do you define the telnet that's used to search for ports across what? Network, right? Network protocol used to remotely access and manage devices over what? The network. So the device you have found here now, this is one device. So to list out all the devices, the source,
at an IP address of this destination, then the browser. So I know that you all have a lot of them. My own is still scanning maybe because I have just one device. How many devices do you have your phone there? So it will ask whether in the root folder, so just give it a name. So I can just see what you have, then just click on save so that it will exit from there. Click on the arm, look at this here, as if you want to quit, it will ask you for whether you want to save. It will give you the option, you select save, but to prompt you that interface. You find it, then you save it. So the file is saved.
So, this one I have, but I know it's the function. So, let's start from. I starting from pseudo and something about. Shall start from the back. Yeah, not super. I can't consider.
Now to run the telnet command, we are going to start by installing it, and this is the code. Remember that is the last code here. Sudo apt install telnet, but to install it first before you run it. Yes. So this one is a method which we use. Now we want to implement the telnet now, and this is the syntax sudo apt install telnet. So let's go and run that code. Let's see if we can install it before we stop. So let me go back to my Kali. So I'll simply do sudo apt install telnet.
You say before you go back to this last list.
Have we done that? Let's. What did you have?
After all this, I got error.
You got error. What did you run? What did you run? Which code did you run? This one.
I have
because this is the code I want to run as the last one.
Which one?
This one. But before you can run telnet, the IP address, you must have what? Install it first.
Yes, it was installed.
Sudo apt install telnet. Are you saying it did not work?
No, I'm getting the field to get you.
And that is still network issue. They are getting that error. Now, the last one, please let's look up before I end the class. So here, we have successfully installed the telnet, which is a technology that helps us to capture devices ports on the internet. So now we want to run it. To run it, you simply say that telnet, the IP address you want to capture, and the port number you want to capture. So we'll stop on this slide. Just copy this code.
Since I don't there's not a good thing
Just cancel it. Look at it now. You can just take it later. That one is one of the methods. This is the second option. You know, I told her that there is a technology that has replaced telnet, which is what? The SSH, which we implemented with what? Wire sharp. Now we are implementing the telnet itself now. And I said you have to start by installing it by running this line of code to get it installed. And then you are running this one. You have to give it the IP address of the machine you are targeting. Okay. No, let me have this first. I'm coming back to this. So telnet what? The password, sorry, the IP address and the port number, which is what port 23. So if I go back to my coming back to this telnet, the IP address after 168 56 102. Let's say we are targeting ports. Now, so it's asking because remember that this is metasploitable what? Machine, which you are trying to what? To go into. And it's asking for what? The password. Remember the password, which is MSF admin. Then MSF admin also. What did you get here? The program include with what? Boot system and free software. No name, okay, to access. Run your own. Let's see. Let me see what you get. Okay, so you are still right now, right? Let me wait for Christopher. So let me run that code to check if that port is open. Nmap.
No, you want to spreadsheet, right? You buy and chat.
So as you can see, what happened here is that with this now we have left Kali. We have left Kali. We are now operating in what? Metasploitable, which means that you have already entered now.
So now
We have left, yes. We have left Kali through that port. We are now in what? In Metasploitable.
so we are
So now what I did, let me open this so that remember that we ran a sudo test, right? Sudo apt install telnet, right? Now it now asks for what? The password. No, in this one now because we are not working with a good stamina. So I'll just type my password. Now we are in root now. Now from here, so this one we have installed the telnet. Now to run the telnet, I say what? You simply run what? Telnet. Remember, this is the code. Look at this here. Look at the code here. Here, this is what I just did now. Then I said to run it, you run this code with the IP. So you can see that IP took us from Kali, we were able to enter what? The port in Metasploitable. That's what I want to run now. You simply run telnet, the IP address, and the ports in that. Don't forget that this IP address is the target machine. And through the ports you migrated. So if I come back here now, so I'll just run what? Telnet, right? 10x, what's the IP address again? 19 what? 2, right? Dot 168 dot 50 what? 56 dot 1 2. Then specify the port number. So this is what I need. Now it says that what I need to enter. Okay, the host network remote host is what unreachable. I believe it's network. Let me check. Yes, yeah. Let me check my metasploitable because it's supposed to show that metasploitable to show that you have from Kali enter. So let me see my metasploitable. Maybe it's no longer active.
You enter the metasploitable through the IP address.
Yes. Through that port.
Through the IP address.
Yes, and the port, the particular port. I've installed the telnet. I was trying to run a telnet search. Telnet/reports. You can see that I typed 66 instead of 56. This is the reason why I said you cannot reach what the network. So let me just type it again. Telnet 192.168.56.102. Then followed by the ports you are targeting in the target machine. Now this is. So you can see that with the telnet, if you go back to the book of here, let's understand why we are using this telnet. I said telnet is what? A network protocol used to remotely what? Access and manage devices over what? The network. So what have we confirmed now? Through the telnet now, we are able to what? To contact another port in the target machine from Kali to port 23 in what? Metasploitable. So which means that there is that network. Now, if you have installed your OWASP, also try it. If you have installed your OWASP, just launch your OWASP and get the IP address as well. Then use the telnet to see target the port there and see if you'll be able to access, because the OWASP and the metasploitable, they are on the network. And that is the essence of the telnet, just to access devices on the network. So let me see this one open so I can check the.
Well, what would be the issue?
Yeah, it's not going.
No, you're able to solve it. One need to follow.
Then do apt updates. Yes, sudo apt updates, then sudo apt update before you run the command again. So I'm trying to confirm it on another machine on the network, which is OWASP. So to log into my OWASP, my username is root. My username is root. My password is OWASP DBWA.
Password.
No. The other one was the same password, MSN. MSF admin. This one is the first one, the user is root. The password is OAuth OAuthPWA. Yes, it's in there. You want to try it. Now let's do iConfig. I just want to use that telnet to target this port now. Target another machine port now. So iConfig. Let's see if I'm capturing this open. iConfig. Just to get the IP address of this machine. Please help me note it there. I think it's the same IP address. The difference is what? This one is 103. The other one is 102, right? The same thing. So you can see that they are serially labeled on the same network. Metasploitable was the same code. The only difference is the last number. So now let's go back to Kali now and use the telnet to access it. So remember that I have to leave here. I have to do, let me do sudo I and see. So I use sudo I to switch back to what? Remember, it's part of those basics that we learned the other time. To switch back to Kali now, right? Sudo I to switch back to what? Kali. I don't want to quit here. So from Kali now, let's run that what? Telnet, because we have already installed it. So I will just change what? The last number here from 2 to what? Let me just wipe everything off. So let's say 1, right? 0 what? 3. An error there. Let me just. So 192, right? Dot 168 dot 56 dot 103. Then the same port, right? So not reachable. What does it say? Who have not made mistake? Telnet, unable to connect towards remote host. Connection refused. So I said you can have that means what? Maybe that port is not open in that machine. So you can try different ports. And there was a code I said in case you are having an error, you run one code to check if the port is even open. Network is studying here. Here, look at this. If you display what? Connection failed or what? Refused. Check the following. So you just run this again. You check it what with nmap now to know, because nmap will enable you to know whether the port is even open first. So you discover that if you go there and run this code now, nmap must have told that what the port is closed. That is the reason why it's not connected. So you can try that. Found that why it says refuse. Let's even use the nmap to check if the port is even open. Because if the port is closed and you are trying to penetrate, it will not go. That's when you get information like connection failed or refused. So let's use this code to find that. Nmap, that same address we are trying to contact, which is 92.168 dot what? 56 dot 103. All right. Then /p to find the ports that want to check whether it's open. So if you run it now, it's loading. Let's see the results. And if at the end of the day the port is open and it says connection failed, then you know that it's not a. What do we have there? Can you see it now? 23 what? TCP close. Can you see now? 23 ports close. That's how we got that message. So you now keep trying different ports depending on the domain you want to add. You can try 22, 21. So this is how you actually know if the port is accessible. This is where we draw the curtain.